What's going on, everybody? Tim from Tirfon Orbital. So this is going to be a relatively quick demo walkthrough video for an install commission I completed a little bit late last week. This is for a Korbanth / Shadowfoil OWK-TPM. So this is based on Obi-Wan's hilt from the Phantom Menace and is offered by Korbanth, and Sam from Shadowfoil also designed parts of this hilt. So I've done an install on my personal OWK previously. So this is the exact same install. So we're going to go over the chassis quickly, relatively quickly. I'm going to talk about some of the components that went into the design. And then, of course, we'll come up top, take a look at the hilt, and we'll be on our way, right? Same deal. Same deal. Never changes, right? So yeah, this is the Obi-Wan's hilt. Being an old school original trilogy guy, the prequel hilts never really spoke to me on a personal level. That being said, this happens with me time and time again. I did an install on an Obi-Wan prequel Obi-Wan hilt, and I did fall in love with the design and the way the hilt felt in my hand, so I had to get one for myself, right? So anyhow, enough about me. Let's talk about the chassis and come into fusion. Here is the chassis that I've designed for this hilt. So this is a removable chassis system. It is a very, very thin inner diameter. Luckily, however, with the Korbanth version of this hilt, there is room in the pommel to get a 28mm speaker. And the way I achieved that was by doing a speaker pod, right? So here is our main chassis. This indentation up here is where I have a 6-rail PCB. This is from Smugglers Outpost. I've got a side firing kill switch here. Proffie board does slide down into this tray. This is a tilted Proffie board setup, so it's easy to get at the SD card as well as the USB without pulling the whole Proffie board out. I really do like doing them like that, right? Greebly work along the sides. We've got our battery tray here. So I do have a speaker pod down here. And the way I achieve that is with a 2-conductor PCB from Smugglers Outpost. So I wire that up, stick that in this indentation here, and then I glue this cap onto the bottom of the chassis. The pommel on this hilt is a little interesting in that it's got plenty of room for a 28mm speaker down in the lower section of the pommel. The upper section does change inner diameter and get a little thinner on the way up. So I do have like a post to bring my conductors all the way up to this indentation here. And this is where the pin side, this is the female end rather, pins are up here. But that's how we make a connection to the upper part of the chassis. And thus we have a removable chassis system. So let's come up top and take a look at this guy. Okay, so here it is. This is the OWK-TPM from Korbanth and Shadowfoil. Let me get my coffee out of the frame here. This is the OWK-TPM from Korbanth and Shadowfoil. Really, really nice looking hilt. So we've got our unthreadable pommel here. I'm going to go ahead and just take this off. I think I still have a battery in here. So I want to talk about this pommel a little bit, right? So this pommel comes, it's in 2 sections. It does unthread here. So down in this chamber, we've got room for our 28mm speaker, and then it gets a little thinner on the way up. And that's where we've got our connection to the upper part of the chassis, right? Another thing that I did notice about the Korbanth version of this hilt, there is there's a cap at the bottom of the pommel here, and you can unthread that as you see fit to adjust resonance. I liked that about this hilt as well. So here is our chassis. Okay, I do have a battery in here already. Very, very simple chassis, very thin. Okay, battery tray is here. Here is our Proffie board, and we've got a kill switch around the side. PCB connection is up top. So to use the chassis, right, you want to take the flat part of your battery. Spring side is your negative. Rest that battery in the battery tray. So this is a Proffie V3 build. You will not hear an audible cue because we don't have our speaker connected, but you do have a green status light on the Proffie board, so you know you've got power. Kill switch is along the side, so if you don't see that green light, hit the kill switch. Kill switch in the down position is on, just so you know the client, right? So then you take your chassis, Slide it in the hilt until it stops. And then thread your pommel in until that stops. So with this particular build, right, I did this, the client did request that I do this one exactly like my personal. So we've got our gem in this brass switch that has been lit. I achieved that with a lit PCB switchboard from Stock Custom Works, right? So that is actually a NeoPixel, and it is programmed as its own blade in the config. And however, with this particular one, I believe this is set up as a sub blade, right? So that first pixel in line with the blade is its own animation, okay? And that's it. Twist to activate, twist to deactivate are on. Let's come down to the bottom. So there is that lit switch. Yeah, you know, I know this is not film accurate. This is not necessarily film accurate, but I do love that little tweak about this particular hilt. For me, it was a no-brainer because there's a gem here, and we've got a hole at the bottom of that switch to light it from below. So that's what I did on my personal as well. All right, let's see what else we got on here.
I was beginning to think you weren't coming, Master.
So this brass switch is your aux, red is your main. Let's see what else we got.
A Jedi.
Let's go ahead and put a blade in it. So this hilt did ship with a blade plug. This is from Korbanth to put your blade in. Another thing I appreciate about the Korbanth version of this hilt is that there are 2 set screws for the blade. And they're at different angles, so you can really bite down on the blade. Loosen those set screws. There are 2 of them. Here's the blade plug. This is a 1-inch blade holder for this particular hilt. Slide your blade down till it rests on those PCB pins. And then tighten your set screws. And then you're good to go. Let's see what we put on here.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So this has been set up with color wheel on all of the fonts. To access color wheel, you want to hold down that aux button and tap main. When you find a color that you like, you just tap main again. Let's go ahead and go through all of the config, right?
Master Kenobi, you disappoint me.
For the most part,
Obi-Wan.
I've got Obi-Wan fonts on here as requested by the client.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. I haven't got...
General Kenobi. That is the sound of 1,000 terrible things heading this way.
Some prequel fonts on there as well, Qui-Gon.
Trained in your Jedi arts.
Some of the fonts also have a different animation for that light that's underneath, or that NeoPixel that's underneath the switch.
I've become more powerful than any Jedi. This is my apprentice, Darth Maul.
So that's it. Just a quick rundown on the OWK-TPM from Korbanth and Shadowfoil. Really, really solid hilt. I do enjoy it myself. I've got one in my collection. So to the client, thank you very much for trusting me with your install. To the viewers, everybody, if you have any questions at all, please don't be a stranger. And with that being said, may the Force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.